Hello, I'm Toycat and welcome to the start of what I hope will become a series of finance and money related videos here on the third channel. This is something I have a huge personal interest in, and it's something that you'll see a lot online in the form of how to get rich, doing X sort of thing, but most of these how to get rich videos are actually someone else getting rich by encouraging you to do something which makes them rich in the return. It's a really funny thing in my opinion, but it is quite tragic and it makes people distrustful, so that's why I want to be entirely clear with this video. I'm not making any money off you in terms of affiliate links. Down below there's no links where I'm going to be encouraging you to go. I'm not going to be encouraging you towards any particular product or service. This is just a lesson that I wish I'd learned earlier because it entirely changed my mind about the world and how I saw the world, and I hope that it'll change your opinion on the finance world and convince you that you can in fact become a millionaire if you are at the start of your career especially, but if you live in any country, if you're going to have a job at some point, this is a lesson that I think you'll take a lot from, because most people try and convince you you can never become a millionaire. Some of those people are politically minded, some of those people just generally don't believe it, but if you actually look at the stats here in the UK, which is where I live of course, you can see how the number of millionaires goes up significantly from year to year to year to year. There are 2.4 million millionaires in the UK right now, for instance, which is quite a surprising number, and you've got to question how do they get there. And of course, some number of people are going to be like, here's the get rich quick scheme, but the truth is, most people who get to the millionaire stage got rich slow. You don't get rich quick, you get rich slow. That's the simple answer to this video, but let me explain a bit more, because in school, we don't really learn too much about finance and how it works and stuff. The one lesson that I did receive was about compound interest, where like, hey, did you know if you put $10,000 or pounds or whatever in a savings account for 30 years with an interest rate of 8%, then you'll make, say, $107,000. But there's three problems with this as like a lesson. One is that you have to have $10,000. I never just had $10,000 lying around, and if you do, then you're quite you're quite far on your journey already if you have 10,000. As counterintuitive as it sounds, the first 10,000 is probably going to be just as hard as the other 990,000 of your million. The other thing is, what bank account pays 8% saving rates? And the other problem is you have to leave that 10,000 for 30 years, and once you do so, you only end up with 107,000, which is a lot, don't get me wrong, but it's not enough to retire on. It's just like, oh, I have significantly more money than before. It's not the lesson that people need to learn, because again, if you can put 10,000 in a saving account for 30 years, it's not a very aspirational goal. But becoming a millionaire is a very big aspirational goal, so how exactly do we do that? Because we don't have savings accounts paying 8%, and even if we did, we'd have to put away 100,000, and getting 100,000 is very hard first of all. So how exactly do you get rich slow? And the simple answer to this one is, although bank account saving interest rates are super low, all-time lows right now because of various monetary policy decisions around the world that we won't dive into in this video, basically interest rates are very low, but what isn't very low is the yield on stock markets. Here is a look at the FTSE 100. You've probably seen one of these stock graphs before and thought, ooh, I don't really believe in stock market investing, because if you look at any particular stock, you're going to see a graph like this, and it's terrifying knowing that you could lose, such a huge amount because of random volatility. Some individual stocks never recover. Some businesses just go out entirely, and losing your 10,000, let that 10,000 you could have invested, losing that immediately sounds awful, right? But here's the deal. When you look at the long-term performance of markets like the FTSE 100, which if you're curious, so the FTSE, it's the UK stock market, the 100 best trading stocks. If you take the average of all of the top performing stocks in a market, you can take the 100 or the 250 or the 350, you can take any number of these, but if you take an average of a large number of stocks, because the economy grows and because all of those shares grow, currently under our current understandings, what tends to happen is you see how even with big crashes, so if we go back a little bit further, because 2010 is kind of cherry picking, if we go back another, 5 years beyond that and we find the big financial crisis of the early 2010s, you can see how there are big stock crashes which put people off, but over time you can see how you would still make money even once you adjust for that. Even if you invested at the very peak just before the big crash happened, you would still have a profit on the stocks that you invested on in 2007 over to here now. It's not as huge a profit as if you invested at the very bottom of the market, your returns would be almost 200%, but you can make money investing in the stock market in the long run pretty much no matter what. Because again, if we look at the S&P 500, which is the American, it's American stock exchange, so if you live in America, shout out to you, wow, talking about one of your stock markets. But if we take the S&P 500 an example, you can see how every single year here, it goes up and down by huge swings, like wow, down 3.1, but then up 31.5, and you can see how even though it goes down some years by huge amounts, 22.1 just following the dot-com bubble, minus 37 in the 2008 crash, you can see how the majority of years it goes up. And to simplify this, because what am I really saying here? Why am I saying, why have I gone from, oh yeah, you get rich slowly, to put your money in the stock market and see what happens? Because when you look at a single year of, here's again the S&P 500, when you look at a single year of gains, the very best gains you could have had in a single year period are up to 60%. You could gain 60% of your money in a year, but that's kind of like a gambling thing, because you could also lose 40%. It's a good gamble to take, don't get me wrong, but it's gambling. No one wants to lose money, especially hard-earned money. If you're at the start of your career, which is where I assume you are if you're making this video, you don't want to lose 40% of your money. You'd like to gain 60% though, right? But we're not talking about a one-year investment. We're talking about how to get rich slowly, which takes a long time. And one of the things that most stock markets will do, as most analysis will tell you, is the longer time frame you look at, the longer the event horizon, the more positive results tend to be. If you look at any 15-year period in the S&P 500, again, one stock market, but it's true for most stock markets in most stable countries. If you look at the stock market return over 15 years, you can see how even the worst case is it's an increase of like a few percent, and the best case is an increase of 20%. Rolling returns, by the way, so every single year. So, the worst case scenario is about 4 or 5% every year. The best case would be a 20% year-on-year improvement. And over 20 years, again, the worst case gets better, the best case gets worse, because although the average year-to-year can be crazy high, when you average them out and when you average your actual returns over year, because if you gain 31.5%, then you lose 3%, then you gain 30%, it's not the same as the order of those events changes what happens, basically. But yeah, over the long run, what ends up happening is you will gain more money, and you will, again, the interest is significantly higher than the 0.01% you'll get in your bank account. So if you're putting money in for the long run, putting it into a stock market, into tracker funds, really, because you can buy shares in those 500 companies individually, or you can buy shares in a tracker that just follows that, then you can make on average this amount of money. And although again you might have your own individual concerns about stocks or this or that, or the fact that you're buying into companies this way, the key things you need to know is that over the long history of stock markets, over time, again, the rolling returns have been seriously good. And even though there are pretty shocking returns in the individual years, or there are pretty shocking returns, even over a 5-year period, you can have huge gains and potential losses. Those losses go down over time. Those potential losses go down and even disappear over a longer period of time, and those potential gains stabilize at much lower percentages. So the number that most people tell you as far as like what is the actual average gain in the stock market then is 10%. I hear a lot in America, but we'll be conservative for today's video and we'll say like 8%. You can say I'd say 8, 7, 9. Those are the numbers you're most likely going to arrive at. If you put money in the stock exchange and you leave it, you get somewhere between like 8 and 9% interest. So let's just say 8.5, a nice round amount between those numbers. So if we leave that $10,000 in the stock exchange for 30 years, we could in fact turn it into $124,000. But again, this isn't useful because who has $10,000 lying around? I didn't come from a family where I could just be like, hey, can I borrow $10,000? I've got a get rich slowly scheme, because one, no one would lend you money for that anyway, and two, I didn't have the support system, and I'm assuming you don't, to just be like, hey, money please. I think it's wacky that some people do, but this is for the people out there who are like, okay, I want to do this by myself, or I have to do this by myself, as is realistically going to be the case. So here's the deal, right? Compound interest is a powerful thing, but compound interest on top of compound saving is how you can get rich quick slowly. Do you want to become a millionaire? Well, all you have to do is regularly invest into that. So, for instance, if you wanted to become a millionaire, the easiest way is to have a salary where you can somehow manage to save, cut down your expenses as low as you can so that you can save $1,000 a month. Because if you save $1,000 a month, even if you have nothing in there initially, you start with nothing, but every month you get paid, you pay yourself first before any other things besides if you have rent and essential utility bills. The first thing you pay is your savings account, which then goes into the stocks. If the first thing you do is pay yourself first, if the first thing you do with your money is put it in there and you somehow manage to get 1,000, which I'll admit for a lot of people, 1,000 is a significant chunk of their earnings, but that's the point. Are you in a job where you can afford to do that? If you are, put 1,000 in there, put it in there for even just like 25 years, not even 30, and you'll see how over the next 25 years, you'll earn $729,000, in interest from your money, because your interest starts to earn interest. Add that to the money you'll invest over that time, and you'll have $1,029,000. You might be able to do it in 24 years, actually. Let's see if that is possible. You'll have, after that number of years, oh wow. You can see the difference between year to year, by the way, but you can see how somewhere between year 24 and year 25 of just investing $1,000 every month, you will become a millionaire. And I'll admit, getting a million in there sounds, getting 25 years, investing 1,000 every month, it sounds really, really, really challenging. I certainly, I work on YouTube. I've always worked online, so my income's been super unstable. The vast majority of the time I've been doing YouTube, I didn't earn 1,000 in a month, let alone be able to save it. But here's the deal, right? You can take the same principle, you can turn it into smaller amounts. The amount I actually started with was $250, which was about a third of what I was making. I shared a bedroom with my then girlfriend, and house shared what shouldn't have even been a 2-bedroom place with my brother. But basically, what I managed to do is okay, save $250 a month. After 25 years, at putting that all into stocks, that can be worth, again, on average, $257,000. Again, the longer run, the more it stabilizes. There's going to be some dips. That money might go down in value at some point, but over the long run, it averages, right now at least, roughly 8.5%, and that means you can go to $250,000 in that time. And realistically speaking, if you're doing well for yourself, if you are trying your best to earn money, if you are, moving on up in the world, take your raises, take your salary increases, the increase in payment, whatever you call it in your particular thing, take that extra money and start to invest that. Because what you can actually start to do here is be okay, so what about in the first 5 years, we just put the $250 away, so that ends up with year 5 being, what is that, $24,000? So we take the $24,000 from the first 5 years, and then we start upping it to, 1,000 after that. Because after those number of years, we've had enough raises. Or even if we just say 500, we start doubling it after that point. Well, then what we can do over the next 20 years, it's not going to be quite as much as if we start with 500 a month, but we can have pretty much half a million. You can be a half millionaire in 20 years, even starting at those smaller amounts. And the craziest bit is even, just by doing this long enough, if we take this and we take it into 30, then all of a sudden, 35 years after beginning, even investing that smaller amount a month, you can be a millionaire. Realistically speaking, the way you'd want to do it is you start at zero. 1,000, again, the numbers that make sense to most people is 1,000 a month. Do that for 25 years, and eventually what you end up with is $1 million. This is the headline thing to get out there. If you can save 1,000 a month, as soon as you can start doing that, you can be worth $1 million, pounds, Canadian, shekels, whatever you want. You can be a millionaire after that number of years, and that is how most people, again, some people in these numbers are people who had wildly successful business ideas. They can invest in themselves and get 1,000% returns in the year. Even if you have no particular knowledge about, what the FTSE 100 is. I know a fair number of the companies. I find it interesting when I see companies I know go in and out of it. This is something I personally invest in. You can invest in this if you live in the UK. If you live in America, you can invest in the S&P or the Nasdaq exchange. There's a lot of different exchanges all around the world. There's a lot of different share types you can invest in, but most tracker funds that have a long history, all of them, because of the nature of shares and the way companies are very efficient, tend to increase in value over time. And long story short, if you even without knowing that, you can become a millionaire in 25 years, and that's the vast majority of what people in this list have done. The 2.46 million people who who are currently a millionaire, the majority of them are like that. There are going to be, again, it's a common trope on the internet, and it's a common trope in the political space that no, the way you become a millionaire is nothing like this. There's no getting slow and working hard and saving away your money and making decisions about what to do with it that are maybe better, because 1,000 a month is a huge amount that you'd want to do other things with, of course. A lot of people try and say no, what it actually is the way you become a millionaire is you're born into money, or you get a really super well-paying job. But the fun thing is that a lot of people who earn, let's take 2 examples. A guy who's earning, $3,000 a month doing a physical job with skills because he learned to do a thing like that. You can save 1,000 a month. It's kind of hard for you, and in 25 years, you'll be a millionaire. Someone earning literally 200,000 a year, this is a very common scenario, depressingly so, can be spending all of that money and have a very small nest egg. I speak to the bank manager for my local area, for weird reasons, don't ask, but he explains to me that there's a lot of, the richest earners, most of them are huge amounts in debt. They are not only not in the positive by very much, they are huge amounts in the hole because they're not investing their money, they're doing the opposite. There are two sides of this interest rate you can be on. You can be on the side of the interest rate that's making the money, that's making $729,000 over the next 25 years, or you can be on the side of the money that's losing. I mean, you wouldn't lose that much in interest charges, I hope. Please don't put $1,000 on a credit card and forget about it. Or you can be on the side of the interest rate that is losing that money. And a lot of, the earnings, earnings and wealth are different things. Some people on this list will be born into wealth, but a lot of the people slowly get there. You don't just earn $1 million a year and then save 1 year worth of salary. No, a lot of the people, a decent number, get there slowly over a long amount of time because the human lifespan is long. 25 years in the grand scheme of the human lifespan, from age 20 to 45, if $1 million is your retirement amount, is not a huge amount. Even if you want to invest a way lower amount, and you're like, okay, I'm just going to go of 200 and 250. If I had to stick to my same amount because my my earnings never increased past roughly $750 a month, which is where they started. Even if you never increased past that point, with enough human time before you retire, 44 years from now is when I'll retire. I think actually 42 years. I think 66 is the retirement age in the UK. What's that? Can become a millionaire like that starting today, age 24. The younger you start, the more years you have as well. Like if I did start when I was 17, but like add another 7 years to that one. I think 24. Yeah, add another 7 years to that one. And what's that? The difference is immeasurable. 2 million, by the way. 7 years is what can turn $1 million into that amount. Compound interest, it sounds wild because most compound interest scenarios are fictional. They're the realm of make-believe, where you inherit $1 million and you turn it into $2 million by investing it with the bank, and they give you nice little things like that. But the reality is, find a tracking fund that works for you. There's a lot of them. The government, by the way, in case you think like, the government doesn't like this, but the government would rather you be rich. People who are rich, actually, here's a fun little fact, by the way. The average worker earns £1 million by the time they turn 56 and pays, a bunch of national insurance and stuff. But the average, person takes more from the government. I mean, the average person receives exactly zero from the government because all spending works that way. But, you are a net drain on the government if you are below a certain amount of wealth and earnings. If you earn a lot of money, the government would like that, right? Can we all agree on that as a base concept? Even if you don't agree with the concept, in the UK, there's something called an individual saving account. You've probably heard of it, called an ISA. It's a tax-free saving account. You put money in there, you don't pay tax on it. Realistically speaking, most small-time earners wouldn't pay tax anyway, but you can only put up to £20,000 in there. This means that if you did inherit £1 million, this is worthless to you. Putting $20,000 a year in an ISA, super low, super not worthwhile to you. But if you're investing your money slowly, say $1,000 a month. By the way, what is $1,000 a month for 42 years? Do you want to know? Ooh, 4.7 million. Chunky. But you putting your £1,000 a month, or you can theoretically put up to, what would it be, like 1,500 would be 18,000. So you can put about 1,650 a month in this account at max, which I'd say is about as much as a normal person can afford. And then, then all of your earnings are tax-free. You do not pay any capital gains tax, income tax, or anything like that. There is no tax payable on money returned from the scheme. This is not some way to help the rich people, because rich people have huge amounts of money lying around. This is a way to help people who are trying to save their money for their future, because every single government around the world would like you to have 4 million sitting in a retirement account by the time you're 62, because there is a huge crisis. And if you don't care about this individually, if the idea of having like $1 million if the idea of having $1 million, pounds, whatever, in 25 years isn't appealing to you for some reason, and some people aren't money driven, we have a societal issue where the number of old people is going to bulge, and the way we're paying for those old people is entirely based on young people's things. And the way governments, long story short, without diving into like what almost sounds like a doom saying about the future, governments would like you to have money to look after yourself when you are old. And you know how you can do that easily? This way. Do you not care about the great gains of having, $1 million and 20? By the way, every single year you go after this is like insane because compound interest. Does having, going from $1 million to 1.2 million 2 years later to, 5 million? Another 2 years later, if that's not interesting to you by itself, if the idea that your money can make money so that you're not stuck on the endless treadmill of life isn't interesting to you, what should be interesting to you, what might be interesting to you is the idea that you can be a net gain to society. You can invest in only ethical stocks. You can no matter who you are, you can invest in the things that you believe work. They're going to have different returns and different this and that. And as a result of making money from those things, because of how the nature of money in the future is worth less than money now, so you can trade your money now for money in the future at a lower rate, so you can take it for free. You can make that exchange as much as you like. If you can cut back on your spending on consumerism, which we all admit is a problem, if you can do that, you will make the world better in lots of ways, and you'll be worth $1.498,088.81 if you after those years are up. So yeah, this is the first in what I hope will become a series of videos. I find finance fascinating. If I inspire one person to just be like, oh, yeah, I just started a job, I'm in a skilled position, I'm in this and that, or if I just encourage someone to want to get a job in one of the desired fields, IT is a good example, plumbing, electricians, practical skills or IT are like the two big examples. But if this encourages someone to get a job so that they can start doing this, if it encourages someone who is just starting a job or just started, that like now is the best time. The best time to plant a tree was 20 years ago, the second best time is today. If you want this to be your reality one day, start that 29-year clock now, or 25-year clock, 24-year clock, 20 whatever year, depending on the rates. Like if you want to be really optimistic and say 10%, which everyone always says 10% when they want to sell you products, 10% isn't that accurate in the long run. But like, do you want to? If you do assume 10%, you can be like 22 years from now you'll be a millionaire. But no, I think that's a bit unrealistic. Having if you want to make money, here's how. If you want your money to make you money, here's how you do it. Be on the right side of interest, not the wrong side, is the first lesson here. And if you'd like to see more of these, please let me know. If this inspired you, please let me know. If you thought there was a flaw in this video, let people know in the comments down below. Help them out too. Because, again, I just want to help the most people do the best things with their money and not the worst things with their money. But that's my opinion. Let me hear yours. Third channel. I don't want to say don't care, because I do care about this. So, goodbye. See you in the next one.